Antony Sammeroff.
Good to be with you, Mike.
Good to be with you. Thank you for joining me here today.
It's a great pleasure. Thanks for inviting me out.
We're in Virginia.
That's right.
Even though you are from Scotland.
I'm from heaven, actually, originally, but definitely incarnated in Scotland about 39 years ago. So.
Wow. And tell me, Americans have this image of Scotland as being this bastion of libertarianism, this, philosophy of to heck with the English and we're very independent-minded people. Is that what it's like to be in Scotland?
These days, not so much. The Scottish Enlightenment, we gave the world Adam Smith. Well, I think Adam Smith gave the world Adam Smith, and David Hume, and many of the liberal philosophers that spearheaded the movement towards what we used to call liberalism, free markets, free trade, the idea that by pursuing our own interest, I think the really important idea that Adam Smith had was that our interests are not antagonistic.
That's right.
Do you know what I mean?
That's
if
right.
I go out and, if I go out and pursue what I want, as long as I don't cause harm to you, that could actually be beneficial to you as well.
I love the way you put it. I have often said as an economist that one of the most dangerous and debilitating philosophies that the world has ever produced is this idea that the way you get ahead in life is by taking something from someone else, that someone else has to fall behind for you to get ahead.
Right.
And of course, we know as libertarians it's not true, but yes, yeah. Adam Smith was a champion of that.
And obviously if everyone does it, there's no civilization, there's no wealth. So the whole basis of civilization is the voluntary cooperation via international free trade, the division of labor through international free trade, and that this allows individuals and countries to specialize, and we get more stuff, we become more wealthy. And I guess one of the things we were going to talk about today is the ways that we've not been becoming more wealthy. We had a pretty good run since Adam Smith. Our life.
It's been a great 200 years.
Yeah, our lifestyle's unrecognizable. In the old days, a rich person used to have a horse and carriage, and poor people used to walk around. Now, sure, a rich person might have a Maserati, but most people have got a car. We're recording this on. Most people have, this supercomputer in their pocket. So much has come on. In 1880, the average work week was 57 hours a week. Mm-hmm. That's the average. So that means
right.
Half people work more than that.
Yeah.
So there was a time where buying a new garment was a once in a lifetime affair for a lot of people. So we had a pretty good run. And a lot of what people are worried about is, the price of groceries and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Things seem to be going in the direction.
Are you pessimistic?
I feel like by nature, I'm not a pessimistic person. I feel like there's only so bad things can get before, they get worse.
Before they get better?
Before they get better. I mean, the whole of human history has been people solving problems. We tried to improve something and it had unintended consequences, and then we tried to solve that problem, and sometimes it doesn't really go well for everyone. So
are we getting smarter? Are we getting better at this?
I worry about that. I worry. I feel like when I look at the culture that was coming out when I was a kid and the things that were on television back then, there are a lot of the humor was implicit, it was implied. Now they always have to explain the joke. So while we might be getting stupider in the short term, I think, even if we just talk about one of the things we're going to talk about today, I hope, it's healthcare, right? Something that can't go on forever, won't go on forever. America now spends $4 trillion a year on healthcare. It's unsustainable. And also, people are not getting healthier. They're getting less healthy, despite the tremendous amount of money. So
you sound like Robert Kennedy.
Oh, well, I mean, he has his moments as well.
He has his moments. Speaking of moments, I want to plug Big Pharma, Guess It Quacks Like a Duck by Antony Sammeroff.
I hear the guy that wrote this book is a stone cold genius, by the way.
And good looking.
Oh, yeah, that too.
And he's good looking. Now, he is from Scotland. This book is a lot of fun.
Right.
And I recommend it to people. And by the way, thank you for contributing a chapter to the book that my campaign published last year. Your essay in here, I think, fits with what we're about to talk about. More government spending will not improve health outcomes. Is that really true? That you would be not optimistic if we were to double from, say, 4 trillion to 8 trillion, that we would be healthier?
We've already doubled it from 2 trillion to 4 trillion. And before that, we doubled it from 1 trillion to 2 trillion. So how many times do you want to double it? There's two ways we can look at this.
32 trillion. Come on, Anthony.
Okay, well, as long as it gets sent over to me and I get to decide what the 32 trillion gets spent on, you know,
your health outcome, right?
We've got. I might spend it on more than just my
health.
Well,
talk to us. Why are you pessimistic that extra money spent on healthcare wouldn't help us all that much?
Well, there's a couple of ways we could look at this. One is just that the government of Oregon did an experiment where they had a bunch of they underspent. So they took a bunch of that money, this anecdote's in my phenomenal book, as well as other interesting ones. And I did try and make the book very humorous and readable with, you know, it's hard on facts, everything's very well cited. I use all mainstream sources. I use the CDC, I use the AMA. Yep. They admit the worst of
If
their
the CD
own.
says it's true, it must be.
Well, I mean, if the CDC says what I say is true, it's potentially a lot worse than that, because this is just what the British Medical Journal, the Lancet, what they freely admit. So Oregon, they had some extra money, so they said, well, we'll randomize people onto. No, I get them confused, Medicare and Medicaid after all this time. We're going to put them on the on social.
Yep.
The only thing that happened is they got more diagnoses unnecessarily they did no better. They with no health benefits.
Right.
If you look at, say, what Singapore spends on healthcare, they've got a similar economy to the US. They're an advanced economy with lots of technology and everything like that. They spend half of what the US spends relative to GDP per head on healthcare. They live 6-7 years longer. They're much healthier, and their healthcare systems come up time and time again as one of the best in the world. So actually, if you spent the money correctly, you might have to spend a lot less of it. In fact, if you look at what a lot of our money is going to, according to a report called The Real Causes of Death in the USA, 70% of our diseases are lifestyle related. So if we actually could take a small fraction of what we spend on treating preventable diseases,
by lifestyle, you mean what we eat?
What we eat, what you rub on your skin, what goes in through your nose, how much exercise you do, how much you drink, how much you smoke, how much, what drugs you take, whether you have a close-knit community, you know, whether you're constantly under stress. Another one I think is underrated. We can come back to chronic muscle tension. So the thing is, we have, and I cover some of the studies in my book, incidents where hospitals ran programs to help people with diabetes or at risk of heart disease reduce the impact of their lifestyle. And what we found is people did a lot better and they spent a lot less money treating those patients. The problem is the private hospitals lost money, so they stopped running these programs. And it happened time again. I've got anecdotes from all over the world. So really, we need to...
They do better with a sick population.
Right. They make more money with a sick population.
Mm-hmm.
We would do a lot better preventing disease than treating it. But this has to be done in a community-oriented way, because people go out to pizza with their buddies. People drink and take drugs with their friends. So it's interesting because people are because when it comes to anything to towards lifestyle change, people cynically said, well, people don't want to change their lifestyle. That might be true for a large percent of the population, and it might be true when all they get is their doctor saying, well, just stop smoking, drink less, eat a little better and move around. Off you go. But what if people could turn up together and in community, go for a jog, sit down afterwards, eat healthy meals, meet other people in their age group, meet other people that with a similar profile to them, and make friends, get that kind of community. That kind of thing would radically
It's a whole
reduce.
lifestyle issue. It's not just spending money.
Right, and we would actually save money, because a heart attack could run $760,000 when you can take into factor all of the healthcare plus then care
Well,
at
that's a
home,
good point.
this,
Now,
that, and the other.
you titled your book Big Pharma. Okay. Why do you love Big Pharma so much?
Well, the thing is,
are these big pharmaceutical companies going to save us?
I want to tell you something, Mike. See, if you are a pharma rep, you get a 6-figure salary and a 5-figure expense account every month.
Pause one moment. For our American friends, 6-figure salary, okay?
Oh, okay, that's good. That's one of the one I really need to watch to elongate my sex.
Well, you don't want to say sex-figure salary.
They probably
it
get-
sounds like
they-
they're compensated differently than the rest of us.
Well, I'm sure they get all sorts of kinds of compensation in that industry. But, to go out and schmooze doctors and convince them to prescribe their drug rather than their competitors, there's only one problem with that. What consumers want is the best drug with the least side effects at a reasonable price. The best one, not Pfizer's, not Moderna's, not the pharma rep's drug. The only job of a pharma rep is to selectively pick bits of studies and try and represent the data in a way that represents the interests of their company and their drug. So what we could say is, in a rational healthcare system, pharmaceutical reps wouldn't exist. The only people advising doctors on what to prescribe would be third-party organizations whose job it was to sort through the evidence and figure out how to deliver the consumer the best treatment. Now, the reason why I wrote this book is there's a lot of myths about the pharmaceutical industry that are widely believed. And in the book, I present 7 of those myths, and I debunk them using mainstream sources. So if you're arguing with Big Pharma, guess it quacks like a duck, you're arguing with science.
Perfectly said. Thank you for that. In your book, in Big Pharma, you talked about a number of myths. You talked about 7 myths with regard to healthcare. Talk to me about a couple of those.
Okay, and there's a place for pharmaceutical medicine. This is the thing. But if people don't have the right information and don't understand what's going on, they can't make the correct decisions about healthcare, and we can't make correct decisions about how to provide healthcare. So if people really believe these myths, they'll make bad choices for themselves and for society. So one of the major myths is that pharmaceutical medicine is responsible for the fact that we're living longer than our grandparents and great-grandparents were. And that's widely believed. Mm-hmm. But according to King's College in London, all the official sources, the reason why we're living longer is because we have a completely different standard of living from the way that people did in the past. It's mostly the fact that we have piped water, refrigeration, we have better access to nutrition.
Right.
During the
and not dying at childbirth.
Right. I mean, people used to live in these tiny flats, 5, 6, in small spaces. Before we invented the motor car, people went around in horse-drawn carts, and the horses pooped in the street, and then the rain would wash that into the water supply, and people would get diseases like typhus. So it's sanitary living conditions. It's somewhere to flush our waste matter away. You could say the plumber's responsible for more health than a doctor is. Right.
Completely understood.
So
and a big shout out to all of our plumbers out there.
Right. Okay. Because you wouldn't like the consequences of it if your pipes flew the wrong way. Right.
Right. We've all seen that.
Okay, exactly. So that's like a major myth, because when you actually understand that it's the way that we live that is the biggest contributor.
Not Big Pharma, but
No,
Big Pharma would lead you to believe it was because of them.
They like to take credit for basically what liberalism, I mean in the old sense, the European sense, free markets, non-interventionist policy, limited government, that created wealth. And that wealth led to better living standards, and those living standards led to us living longer. Now, people think that pharmaceutical medicines cure diseases, but actually not one of the major metabolic autoimmune diseases that we are likely to suffer from in our lifetime has actually been cured by a pharmaceutical.
Really? Talk to me about that.
Well, I mean, we use pharmaceutical medicine to mitigate symptoms, and there's a place for that. We need painkillers sometimes. We need management when people have got serious conditions. But the idea that it's going to reverse your disease, I mean, people are taking these drugs for life, right?
Right.
So if it was making people healthier, instead of getting on more drugs as you got older, the drug would be curing your disease, and you'd take fewer and fewer of them. So when we look at the major advancements in healthcare over the last 50, 60, 70 years, it's all been in the realm of trauma crisis care. If you get a car crash, if you get burnt and need a skin graft, if you need corrective surgery, all of these things, if your body's just a bunch of tubes, right? There's tubes in your nostrils, your mouth, your lungs are tubes, your veins are tubes, your nerves are tubes, your DNA might be a tube. So when these tubes get blocked or cut, or there's a contusion, or they're exploded, that's where you get your health problems. Now, if you're in a seriously dire condition, they can stitch you up. And in that department, the doctors are miracle workers.
Right.
But surgery is not pharmaceutical medicine. And that's how they blur the line. The pharmaceutical industry wants to take credit for what's actually happening.
The advances that we have made in
trauma crisis care and things like that.
Understood.
Right. And that all gets put under the bracket of mainstream medicine. Now, if you want to ask me what I think, we can use pharmaceuticals to comfort the patient and mitigate their symptoms while we treat them holistically and look at diet and lifestyle. And you can use herbs to do a lot of the things.
And get to some of the underlying causes.
So in some sense, it's very ironic, because in the UK we call alternative medicine, holistic medicine, we call it complementary medicine. Actually, pharmaceutical medicine should be the complementary medicine.
Right.
You should use it to complement treating the patient.
Living your life in a more healthy fashion.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, Bobby Kennedy, is he onto something? Does he have a point? Is he bringing to the conversation ideas of value? I'm
definitely glad that he's opened up some of the conversations he's opened up. I sometimes despair at the way that people handle some of these conversations. It's like a third rail topic. And these are scientific questions. Who cares what my opinion is, Mike? Who cares what Bobby Kennedy's opinion is? The question is, what does the science say? So there's a very, very easy way to settle the dispute on, say, vaccines. There's 800,000 people completely unvaccinated in the USA. Mm-hmm. So if the CDC...
800,000 completely unvaccinated?
Completely unvaccinated.
With no vaccines at all?
No vaccines at all.
Fascinating. Okay.
So, that's less than 1%, but
I feel like most of the rest of us have 800,000 each, to make up for it, right?
Yeah, and America vaccinates a lot more than other countries do. In the UK, the National Health Service discontinued the chickenpox vaccine, because they said if you get the chickenpox vaccine, you're more likely to get shingles later in life. So they stopped giving it to people in the UK. That's their position. But
the UK no longer encourages
only in special cases.
But no longer
Routine
as a matter of blanket policy.
They don't give people
no longer encourages.
They don't give kids the 3 chickenpox vaccines that you do in America.
Fascinating.
Because they said you're more likely to get shingles. So they say that's what the UK government says.
Now, this is not something that I think is even in the popular discussion in the United States.
No one knows. So if you take those 800,000 unvaccinated people, the CDC just needs to take a representative sample, I don't know what that is, 5, 10, 50,000 of them, compare them compare their health outcomes to 50,000 vaccinated people, and just age adjust it, or you can even adjust it according to how many vaccines. You can have people that have had half as many vaccines, people have had more. You know? And then you'd be able to measure, are people who are unvaccinated healthier, or are they a hotbed of disease? And now, some people have tried to do these kinds of studies before, but usually they get retracted, they get kicked out of their positions, they get blackballed for just trying to do the study. So I don't know. I mean, I say
there's a lot of money in vaccines.
Right, there is, and I don't even need to tell you. I don't even need to give you a position on it. All I say is, this is a scientific question. Why don't we actually just look? You know, why don't we do the data? They'll say, oh, we can't run a trial where we don't vaccinate one group of children and we do vaccinate the other group of children because it's unethical not to give those children the vaccine.
This has been a huge problem in the United States.
And you go, well, I mean, you can't assume it's unethical. That's what you've got to prove. But we don't have to do that because we already have.
Right, by choice, people who now it's not double blind. They know they're not vaccinated.
Right, we can just check. You know, just see how they're doing health-wise. Do they have more or less colitis? Do they have more or less food allergies? Do they have more or less, you know, God forbid we say it, the A word, you know?
Right.
You know, I'm on the autistic spectrum, high masking, and personally I hate it. You know, the way that I stare off into space when someone's speaking to me, and sometimes I miss cues. And
I haven't noticed it today.
Right, okay. Well, you know, this is me plus a lot of work, a lot of speaking to people, a lot of improving my social skills. I wasn't so well adjusted in school. So if it happened to be that, you know, vaccines were implicated in that, I'd want to know about it. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
So we should just do the studies.
Well, as a society, we will want to know about that, or anything else that was caused by vaccines or caused by anything else.
Unfortunately, Mike, it seems like as a society we don't want to know about it. It's kind of like, you know, when I hope you'll forgive the analogy, you know, when a little girl says that someone in the family was inappropriate with her over dinner, and suddenly everyone goes silent and someone drops a fork, and then she's rushed out of the room and told never to speak about her uncle that way again, or something like that. That's what seems to be happening.
Instead of addressing the problem itself, we don't want to admit that we have a problem.
Well, I mean, as I said,
Is the problem too much government involved in our medicine?
Well, I mean, that's certainly implicated in it. You know, you probably know in 1986, the Reagan administration passed a law that protected vaccine companies for prosecution if their products harm people. So since then, there's been a rush. You've got a perfect business model there. We can take all the profit, and if the product's not that safe, it doesn't matter. We're not the one being sued. But this is across the line, and I talk about this in the book, not so much the vaccine issue, but how the government colonization of healthcare has led to all of these ineffective, not particularly safe treatments being paid for through government. Here it's Medicare and Medicaid. At home we've got a completely nationalized health service. This wouldn't happen in a free market. It's like the regulatory system itself emphasizes new drugs that are under patent over whatever the best treatment is. What we want is the new drug that we can sell for the most money, get a nice cut from the private insurance company, get a nice cut from your government health care, and sell the new drug, even if it's no better than the old drug, even if it's worse. We have this opiate crisis here in America, according to their own studies, they knew OxyContin was more addictive than hydrocodone,
Right.
but hydrocodone was out of patent. So they wanted to somehow market OxyContin as more, as better pain relief, as
Right.
more effective.
Right.
So stuff like
Because
this
the margins would be huge
Right.
on a new drug that
new
was
drug.
under patent and
Right.
was first to market.
Right,
Absolutely.
right. So we've got so many perverse incentives. Economics teaches us that a system is likely to produce the results that it's incentivized to. What we
Well said.
have is a system where, when would they make the most money? Would they make the most money by curing diseases or by preventing them? The best thing they can do is get you sick for a really, 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 really long time. Let me put it this way, right? Imagine I was your financial advisor, Mike, and I say this to you. I've got something great to do with your retirement fund, right? When it appreciates, I'll make some money, but I'll make a lot of money if it depreciates. But don't worry, if I kill you, I won't get a single penny. I'll lose it all. Do you want to sign? That's what we're doing with healthcare.
That's quite an analogy.
Right, and that's exactly. I write it. I wrote it better in the book, but that idea that our best option is to keep you sick as long as possible without killing you, because if we kill you, we can't treat you anymore. But
Right.
you know, if 10, 20,
There's
30,
no
40 years,
incentive structure
Right.
in place to
That-
cure
that-
someone and get them off of the drugs.
So, given that is what the system is incentivized to turn out, and that's what we've seen. We've seen a massive increase in chronic diseases
Over and over and over again.
So that kind of validates the premises of economics in some way.
Will
It's
we
shocking
be
and
able?
appalling.
Will we be able to change the system in the future, both from a research sense and an incentive sense? Can we get government out of these industries?
I feel like this can't go on forever, right? What's going to replace it? That's a question. The reason why I'm so like, if you fix healthcare, you can fix everything. If what America spends on healthcare could just be reduced to what Singapore spends on healthcare, that's $2 trillion a year. That's enough to make conservatives happy with a big tax cut. It's enough to make liberals happy by funding our pensions and unfunded
It changes
liability.
everything.
It changes everything. What I would say is
Our whole economic system looks very different if our healthcare system looks different.
yeah, exactly. And treatments are emerging outside of the mainstream medicine sphere that people aren't going to be able to ignore anymore. You know, there's just like the popularity of things like fasting, you know, juice cleanse, those in some way have opened people's mind on YouTube over the last few years. But now we've got, you know, molecular hydrogen therapy machines and the incredible difference that people can see for a unit that they can buy for a couple of $1,000, you know, can see a massive difference in their health. And I've kind of been doing some alternative health conference tours since I've done the book, and some of the things
I
that
was
people are
about to
coming up
add,
with,
you're
yeah.
not someone who just talks about
Yeah.
it. You're walking the walk. You have been involved with holistic medicine.
Yeah, I mean, I myself didn't just come into this from the view of like a libertarian economist, although I feel like
Nothing wrong with libertarian economists, by the way.
What does a libertarian economist use as contraception? Their personality.
That's nice. That's nice.
You don't need to keep that in the final cut if you don't want to.
I appreciate that.
What I said, what I want.
Damn, I wish that weren't true. Okay. Anyway, go ahead.
It's an old one, but it's still good. Yeah, I guess there was a lot of books about. Well, there's a lot of books about different aspects of the healthcare system, the economic part, what we were talking about the myth that we're living longer because of pharmaceutical medicine. But because I had my own personal health challenge, which I overcame from outside of the mainstream system, I also had a kind of personal stake in our understanding. I've been studying natural health for 20 years or more because, you know, I had all these skin conditions, I had food intolerances, stuff you just don't...
Challenging.
Yeah, stuff you just don't want, right? So I tried so many things. Also, you know, I was suffering from bouts of depression and anxiety all through my teens and 20s. So that's not pleasant either. This kind of stuff made me into a bit of a self-help junkie. And I tried so many alternative. One thing I'd agree with the mainstream doctors is just because something's alternative doesn't mean it's good either. You know, it doesn't mean that it works just because it's alternative. But I came across things that did along the way. And now, you know, whereas for the first, 35 years of my life or so, I couldn't eat wheat or cheese without getting eczema. I've been eczema free, you know. I can eat those foods without experiencing
To what
the
do you
same
attribute
thing.
the change?
I've done so much stuff, but you know, I'm a big believer in detoxification programs. A lot of people don't think that's, don't believe in that, think that, but if you just think about it, all of your cells metabolize and create waste. The same way that we've got a kitchen and a garage with trash cans in it, you know, you've got a kitchen and for preparing your food, and everything that goes in creates waste products that need to come out again.
Right.
So the understanding in
Well, not my cells.
right, okay,
But most people.
but most people's
yeah,
cells.
I tend to be a hoarder.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the idea is that if you accumulate waste faster than you pass it through the system, then you're going to attract bacterial infections, you're going to attract fungal forms and things like that. So when a lot of people think they have a skin condition, what they have is a waste management problem in their body. Then you add to that all this new stuff, microplastics, heavy metals, things that we weren't actually evolved to deal with. The body needs to find something to do with these things too. So in some people, it stores it in the fat cells to keep it away from the organs, and they get bigger and bigger. This is like the philosophy. I'm not saying it's true, but this is like the philosophy that I started to learn about of natural health and how I began to reverse my own health conditions. At least as far as that went.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, because you know hardly anyone does it. I've spoken to the phone on the phone to people who cured incurable colitis. While I was researching my book, people who cured incurable cancer. You know, speaking on the phone to them, finding out what they did. I was in Mexico's in clinics in Mexico where they treat cancer with diet and various protocols and also things like Lyme disease, which are really, really hard to
fight.
reverse. But people maybe don't completely reverse Lyme. Not everyone can, but they get a lot better,
right,
you know, than they were.
Yeah.
And that means a lot. That means a hell of a lot.
Well, we all know people who have had some success
Right.
in changing lifestyle and reversing certain symptoms. Shout out to my good friend Andy, with whom I used to work, who came to roll call one day, and he said he was told he had 4 long-term conditions.
Wow.
And they had 4 prescriptions for him that he was going to be on for years. And to his credit, and to my surprise, he said no, to hell with it. And he completely changed everything from his stress management to his diet, his exercise routine, and was able to, within much less than 2 years, certainly, but within 1 year, make huge changes. But within 2 years, he did not have the symptoms for which he was prescribed the pharmaceuticals.
You know, I still sometimes myself wonder after all this, and you know, I had a friend that was struggling really badly with eczema, so I recommended like castor oil packs, and that's like an old treatment that maybe your great grandparents used on. He said, oh, it really flared up. So I said, okay, we'll try this. Take some chlorella with it, because that's like a toxin absorber. So if you take that in the evening when you go to bed, you might not have the flare up. And he like quartered his eczema medication ever since, and he's taken 1 a day instead of 4 a day. Which
Fascinating.
I'm constantly amazed and surprised about what we achieved, and that's only half the story as well, because we talked a bit about what happened a bit later on, which is I started getting repetitive strain injury in my wrist.
Talk to me about what the symptoms looked like and what did that mean as far as taking things into your own hands,
yeah, like
literally.
So it was a little bit scary. I mean, and also like I've gone to extraordinary length. I've spent like 6 months on yoga retreats. You know, I've been almost a year in India, because I had all these issues with my body. My shoulders were too far forward. They still are a little bit, but they're so much better than they were before. Now I'm about 37 at the time. I'm trying to finish this book, and I'm getting repetitive strain injury. And some days it's so bad I'm afraid to pick up my phone.
Right.
I'm like.
Now the repetitive strain. This is, I presume, computer work, for example.
Yeah, computer work, just holding the phone around here and things like that.
Yep.
You know. If people go to the physiotherapist, go through the mainstream system, here's a
This
ball
is not
squeeze
unusual.
it.
Lots of people have
more
these
and more
problems.
People, unfortunately. Here's a ball, squeeze that, and just try to use them less. Well, if I use it less, I don't have a life. So that's not really
right.
That's not a solution.
You're an author.
yeah, I'm a piano player. You know, everything I do uses my hands. So I was just trying to ignore it. But I was speaking at a natural health conference, and one of the other about this book, and one of the other speakers was a body worker, and people were going around saying, "Oh, have you done a session with Baudrey Fraser? She's incredible. She's amazing." I was like, "Okay, well, I better try this out." I was skeptical. I noticed the difference in one session, so I went back for more. And when she was able to return me to normal function, I was like, I need to learn this. And I trained under her, and we're like best friends.
Baudrey Fraser. And without getting too detailed, what type of physical therapy are we talking about?
We need to get into the reads here. So it's a mixture of elements from all over the world. I don't want to say something like, you could say incorporates reflexology, but it's not reflexology. One of the major innovators was a guy called Brandon Rayner, who studied different types of body work all over the world, 5 or 6 forms. And him and his students discovered that there's traceable bands of tension lies in bands, and you can trace them up, starting from the finger, round into different places. We've got diagrams of these bands. And so a lot of the time, if someone's got shoulder pain, I'll be starting on this side of the hand. If they've got something with their neck pain rather, this side of the hand. If it's something in their shoulder, I'll be starting up here. And, people report 60-70% reduction, like massive increases in range of motion in one treatment. It's amazing what we're able to do. Especially
in the shoulders or
shoulders, arms, back pain, scoliosis takes longer to treat. Sometimes my teacher's been able to prevent people from needing a hip replacement or a joint replacement. Sometimes she's able to do that. Other times she treats people before an operation, and doctors are saying to things like, "What did you do? That was like the easiest ever." It helped people recover from surgery and injuries as well. A lot of people. There's this perception that mainstream medicine is scientific and that everything else is woo-woo. And if you look at when a doctor goes into his computer, he's only really getting the archive of science pertaining to pharmaceutical medicine. So if anything, outside of that is, we're talking anything, herbal medicine, supplements, there's stacks of studies showing that certain conditions can be mitigated or treated with minerals, for example.
And so it's just as scientific.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to get access to any of that. But also the process, the ways that pharmaceutical companies can manipulate data to make treatments that aren't effective look more effective and mitigate the side effects in the data are tremendous. And sometimes no one will even know, because they don't actually have to show all of the data to the regulator. They're not obliged to do that. So until such a time as they get sued, because
They can cherry pick the studies that they want to show.
They can run about. That's one of the things they can do. I actually just put a whole list in the book of different ways that they manipulate data. One is to just bury studies that don't give favourable results. Another and they do trials in young, healthy people, and then they say, well, their side effects weren't that bad, and it was quite effective.
Right.
But then they're going to prescribe it to people who've got other conditions. They're going to prescribe it to older people. They're going to prescribe it to alcoholics. They're going to prescribe it to who knows. So until that company gets sued and the judge says you need to open up your books and let the experts look at where you fudged the data, no one might even know. Sometimes they've even been arrested for encouraging doctors to prescribe these drugs off-label for conditions that they don't have data to support, or in the case of Neurontin, gabapentin, their drugs said it would be worse for these their own study said it would be worse for these conditions, but they can fudge around the data to make it look different. And I go into detail on how that's done in the book,
Fascinating.
So I feel like we again, this comes to the problem being what suits the market best is the new drug, and that's a lot of I kind of puttered out, but I think you'll edit it.
Yeah, I got that. We spend a tremendous amount of money, obviously, on medicine, on medical care in the United States. I gotta believe that if we were able to get our arms around this problem, not only would our economy on the whole look different, but specifically for people with modest means, it would look very different.
Yeah, I mean, how much do people spend a year on health insurance here? Some of them, their health insurance would put someone in a job, in many countries in the world.
Yeah.
And, if that's coming up at a couple of $1,000 a month.
Right.
So if that's one of the ways, I think tangentially related. Well, I've often said Americans do not know how rich they would be if they just fixed their healthcare system. Their higher education system's another one. And there's a couple of other factors I'd like to get to, but let's just look at that. Because certain services like physiotherapist, I'm a counsellor, a psychotherapist. What that costs in Scotland. Once I saw someone over the phone who lived in New York. His copay for his therapist in New York was what I charged. So that means his
right.
His
equal to your total top line, right?
Which was what
just his copay.
Just his copay. So who knows?
So he's paying that plus his insurance premium.
Yeah, plus his insurance premium.
Yeah.
So many of these services cost far more in America than the UK or other countries in Europe. One of the reasons why is it costs so much damn money to go study here. So people are coming out with over 100.
They're trying to overcome a huge fixed cost.
6 figures.
To get started.
They're in debt 6 figures. So if you look at
6 figures.
6 figures. So 6 figures.
6 figures.
When you look at, so they want to recoup that money when they get out of university. So the US economy has grown by almost 100% since the banking crisis of 2007-2008, and yet people aren't twice as rich. The only people who are getting rich are the bankers, because what's happened is the amount of student debt that people have got has absolutely exploded during that period. They're getting all the
and
interest.
not always at cheap interest rates.
Right, and they're getting interest on all of that. Everything's got more expensive, so people aren't twice as rich. Some of it's been sucked into, higher healthcare and higher insurance premiums. So what you need to do is you basically need to open another 200 universities in America and let them compete. Oh no, you're not allowed to do that. The government decides who is and who isn't allowed to open a university. Then the government decides who you must be licensed by in order to perform a profession. In some states, you need a license to braid hair. So all of these things are a bunch of hoops that people have to jump through, and they dramatically increase the price of goods and services. These things have to go. Brian Kaplan wrote a book, Build Baby Build, about how housing regulations in the US lead to house prices and rent being approximately twice what they would be in a free market. Double.
We know it's a huge problem.
I made a similar argument in my book, Universal Basic Income, For and Against, 7 years ago. I'm glad that Brian Kaplan did it because he's much more famous than me, so I'm glad he took on that cause because he's actually got some reach. So just alone fixing these things, higher education, healthcare, the housing regulations, occupational licensing laws. Now we've got this problem with tariffs and
all
things
these
like
things
that.
drive up our prices tremendously.
All of these make people in poverty more poor. So when they say libertarians don't care about the poor or whatever it is, actually we really need to be informing people of how much government intervention into the market drives up the cost of living and creates poverty.
Well said.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if more people understood that free markets were the pathway to cheaper goods, cheaper services, and to make them more widely available, it would be a more popular philosophy, because at that point it's not just philosophy, right? It's nuts and bolts on the ground protocol.
Yeah, you're complaining about the groceries, and you're right to. Tariffs have been a big thing in the news lately, and just think, some countries you're not even allowed to trade with. It seems to make sense that in an advanced economy like America's or those in Europe, what you'd want to do is you want to send your money over to those poor countries in Africa, South America, buy their products, help them out of poverty, send your money over there. Then they can develop factories, ancillary. People gain a greater standard of living. They start to go to university as well. They start to engage in ideas. They start inventing things as well. Once a new invention comes out, it doesn't really matter if it was invented in South America or Africa or China or America. You still get to benefit from it.
Well, the great advancement of the past couple of hundred years since your countryman Adam Smith is that we advance as an economy and develop our income by cooperation, not by competing and taking things away from someone else. That's not how income grows.
Right. And ideas are infinitely replicable. So only someone in the world needs to come up with that idea, that life-changing idea that's going to help someone for it to spread. So if we believe in freedom and prosperity, we want to believe in that for everyone across the world, not just those who can afford to pay for it. When those economies develop, that's not a threat to us, that's a benefit to us, because they can start engaging in ideas and the manufacture of ideas which can change the lives of everyone in the world.
And the increase in others' incomes in no way diminishes ours. It makes them better trading partners in the future.
Correct. I mean, do you want to trade with someone who's rich, or do you want to trade someone who's poor? I want to see people who've got tons of money to pay for my services personally. Maybe they'll be buy boxes and boxes of my books and send them out to all their friends.
When we went through COVID, you were in Scotland.
For half of it.
For half of it?
Well, we had 2 lockdowns. It was like halftime in a soccer game. So we went into lockdown, and then they lifted it, and then in about September, October of 2020, I came over to America, and I stayed out of Scotland for 18 months. I needed to go to Mexico first, because you weren't allowed to go from the UK to the USA unless you'd spent 2 weeks somewhere else. So technically...
Interesting. That was the rule.
And it didn't make any sense, because maybe...
So being in Mexico qualified you to come to the United States.
And who says I wasn't more likely to catch something transmissible in Mexico
Yeah, I have
in
no
Scotland.
idea.
So the rules defied all logic, you know.
But you followed them.
I
Good for
followed-
you. And
well,
you came to the
how
United
else would I
States.
get in? Yeah, I had no choice but to follow
Right.
them. And I stayed away from home for 18 months. So for most of COVID, I was in the States, in Mexico, and Costa Rica.
Interesting. And what was it
And
like? That's right. What was it? First of all, what was it like in Scotland? What was the general attitude of the population?
Not where I wanted it to be. Like not very questioning. You know, the premise was if you were a good person, you obviously believed in the what. It's still I'm still not over it. The fact that these measures were brought in based on no evidence whatsoever.
Right.
And if you look at it, they were actually counterproductive, because what did people do when they were at home? Well, they ordered out. They ate worse. You know.
Right.
They drank more. They smoked more. You know.
Our lifestyles became markedly less healthy.
People's parents and grandparents had to die in the hospitals and alone, and this was apparently believing in this, going along with this, made you sociable, made you a
Acceptable.
kind, compassionate, caring person. And we were meant, what really bothered me was the fact that there was no discussion allowed. You know, can we not, like, is this no one was allowed, is this like, I was like, is this a communist country where the only opinion you're allowed to have is the government's opinion? And all of the news outlets, no one that was against lockdowns. Was
and social media was a problem, obviously.
And no one even talked. Yeah, that was later on they started. The internet's not the same. Before COVID, you could talk about Big Pharma on YouTube. Now, you can get your videos taken down.
Right.
So we don't live in the same world. The fact that no one even mentioned the idea of cost-benefit analysis. Right, okay, so obviously maybe if we keep people at home, less people will get the virus. Can we do a little bit of an estimate? What are going to be the costs though? How's it going to harm people? You know, there wasn't even and no one even bothered. We did. But most people didn't even bother to
I happen to know a libertarian economist in April of 2020 was talking about cost-benefit analysis, but that's a personality disorder.
Right, okay. That's what, that was shocking to me. You know, no one, they just talked like there would be only benefit, you know, such an, anyway. You
Frustrating.
Know what I'm talking, it was scary. It was scary to me to see that everyone could just
and I understand that the attitude toward free speech is very different in the United Kingdom in general than in the United States. Do I understand correctly that there have been individuals in the UK who have been prosecuted for training their pets to behave in certain ways?
All right, yeah. My countryman...
Is this a real story?
This is a real story. The Nazi pug guy.
The Nazi pug guy.
Yeah, so a
pug.
A cute little adorable dog with
a dog. Okay, face. A pug.
Just so that everyone at home is aware. Yeah, so an entertaining YouTuber decided to go on the internet and tell everyone that he was sick and tired of his girlfriend talking about how cute her new pug was.
Right.
So he decided to train the pug into the least cute thing in the world, which is a Nazi. And
he trained his girlfriend's pug to be a Nazi.
Well, I mean, he trained his girlfriend's pug to put its arm up in a Hitler salute whenever he said certain things. Yeah.
Fascinating.
And the pug would just put his hand up like this when he said...
The pug was undoubtedly unaware of the significance of the symbolism.
The pug didn't get arrested for being called...
The pug probably was doing it for a treat or something, right?
It wasn't like arrested for being a Holocaust denier or anything like that. But the owner was in fact arrested and put through 2 years of litigation.
The guy who trained the dog?
The guy who trained the dog. Even though it's clear from the context in the video, he's not even advocating anything Nazi-ish, but the humor of it.
He just thought it was funny.
He just thought it was funny.
It is sort of. I mean, it's a little much, but it is kind of funny. You have to admit. It's a little weird, but it's kind of funny.
I thought it was pretty funny. I personally thought it was pretty funny. Right. So anyway, that apparently.
Next time maybe train the dog to root for, Manchester United.
Or whatever her team she doesn't support. It did fall afoul of the hate speech laws apparently, and they wanted to make an example of him. So this went on. The downside is he was completely made broke, lost his job and everything.
Lost his job.
And all sorts of stuff. 2 years of litigation. But I did ask him in person, would you have done anything differently? And he was like, hell no. Like, he still would have done it.
Really?
It just made his life, he lost everything, but it also made his life an adventure.
He sounds like a libertarian.
He's definitely got libertarian leanings.
I like this. Mm-hmm. I like this guy.
Yeah, and then it did make him quite famous online as well, and he got a bigger following through it. So, yeah, it was an interesting story. So that's the kind of thing that can happen in Scotland. You can get arrested for hate speech by putting a funny video on YouTube.
Now, what direction are we going in Europe and in the UK in particular in terms of hate speech, in terms of free speech? Are we going in a bad direction or a good direction? Are things getting better?
I don't know. It's up to everyone, isn't it? I really don't know. Do people believe in this stuff? Do people really think it's hate speech? Do people really believe there's a fascist and a Nazi around every corner? I mean, like if I thought there was, then maybe I'd have a good reason to be concerned about that. People's grievances these days. I'd like to think we can improve the situation, that we can make things better. It might be more in the medium long term that things get better. We might need to go through a few battles first. Things might get worse before they get better with a lot of the issues that we're talking about.
Yeah, I hear you. J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, of course, ruffled a lot of feathers in Germany a couple of months ago when he implied that maybe the United States and certain European governments aren't on the same page. Mm-hmm. We're not the allies that we thought we were if we don't believe in the same values when it comes to civil liberties. Mm-hmm. These are things that we worry about in the United States.
Right.
No matter who is in power, no matter which government, right, which administration is in power in Washington, we worry about encroachment on our civil liberties. I know that these are things that you worry about as well. Thank you for being here in the United States and doing everything that you do. Talk to us about what your next projects will be. What do you got going on? What, as you asked me earlier today, what gets you up and gets you excited?
Well, I'm really excited about the bodywork practice, to be honest. The fact that I can pass on the same benefit that I received, the use of my hands back to people and things like that. So I've been rewriting the manual for, I'm using my writing skills for my teacher's course, working with her organisation, the I Heal Collective. I really believe in her. I believe in what she's doing, where she's coming from. She's got an extraordinary level of personal integrity, and that's what I want to collaborate with. I'm kind of choosing one thing at a time. I've learned so much about the economics of healthcare and the alternative, that it's really, now that I've got a string to my bow, that's also, I don't want to just talk about it. I want to see what we can do in terms of activism to actually build the alternative, be the change we want to see in the world, let people know that alternatives are possible. They don't need to just deteriorate. They can't. Things can get better. They don't need to get get worse. So bringing those two worlds together, the libertarian world who have an interest in reducing the horrendous amount of money that we spend on healthcare unnecessarily and not for better outcomes, and the natural health world have got a foot in each world, and just seeing how we can channel that into some form of activism and synergy. I'm willing to network with anyone who wants to push this idea forward of actually not just talking about these ideas but helping people.
Excellent. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here, and thanks
Great
for talking to
pleasure.
me about it today.
Great. It's so nice to be here with you, Mike.
Thank you.